style, and ask them all the questions I ask myself when I develop a beer, and I'll come up with a beer for them. So I'm doing a lot of that kind of stuff. We ironically also have it's a mixology menu here, so we'll mix beers that are on draft. And that might be, I have a Dirty Road, which is a brown ale and an IPA. I have a mixed up Englishman, which is a couple of it's an ESB, a porter, and a stout. All English grain, all English recipes, but very different styles. And we call that the mixed up Englishman. So we always have five. We have five of those on all the time. Not on, but there's a menu that we'll mix. So it's kind of fun. We'll do different things like that.
That's really interesting that you guys do that. I mean, I know at a tap room that I go to on a regular basis, we do that just for fun. But I love that you guys are doing that with your beers, just to be like, okay, well, let's, I mean, you're creating cocktails at that point, and you're like, okay, well, let's see what these two do. Nope, never mind. Or maybe it's even the opposite. Like, if you pour this one first, then this one, then it tastes this way. But if you pour this one first and then this one first, it tastes completely different.
Yeah. We will on Mondays twice a month. So every other Monday, we'll literally go and it's not just random. We'll test them. To your point, how much of each? Is it 50-50? Is it a quarter? Like the Dirty Road is about 2/3 brown and 1/3. It's a West Coast IPA that's in it now. So we'll test it, and that'll be what the staff will pour, and we'll teach them what each mixology is. It's kind of fun.
That is fun. Yeah, I mean, like you said, you're trying new things, and I love that about that.
Yeah, it's craft beer. You should experiment.
Exactly. I think the same thing. I mean, that's essentially how we've gotten, West Coast IPAs to where they are now, or hazy IPAs, or just the whole IPA in general. Is there's so many varying levels to it, and like it's you could either have a real light, crisp one, or you could have a real cloudy, danky one, and everything in between, and it's still an IPA.
Yeah, and so what we try to do on the 10 draft lines is have 3 or 4 IPAs, and they're just as you've described. One of them is very sessionable, very light, almost like a pale ale, but still within the IPA world. And it goes right up to a New England where I'm damn near standing over the manway on top of the fermentation tank, pouring hops into it until my arms fall asleep, and everything in between. So it's very rewarding. Knock on wood. I mean, I've done this long enough. Like the seasonal was a good example. I know enough about the dynamics, the buffering zones, characteristics of the grain, what it can absorb, what too much of one thing is going to be like, what grains go with what grain, what hop goes with what hop, what hop goes with what grain. We have a couple of house yeast here, so we can kind of manage to the yeast as far as the flavor profile is concerned. So, we're not just throwing stuff together. There's a lot of dialogue and recipe formulation and, going through it in that regard. And, once a week we get grain in, so it's kind of just in time there. And I write the recipes, or I'll pull the recipes and may tweak them a little bit right before I place the grain order. And get the grain in on either a Monday or a Tuesday. And, we're brewing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. A lot of Thursdays and Fridays. Fridays we typically use for maintenance or bottling or kegging, or not bottling rather, but canning. Not brewing. Or if we have to catch up, Friday's a good catch-up day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, you talked about distribution, and you guys are out there, and your can art is very clean and very noticeable. How do you guys come up with the designs for not only the logo, but the can art as well?
So the can art was kind of interesting. There's 2 designs. One for what I call our core, the ones that we, like the brown ale, the 1687 brown, the Wadsworth IPA, we got a little Charter Session IPA, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all 12-ounce six-packs with a very plain label, bright colors, but plain. It describes exactly what's inside the can, It tells you the style. You might be saying, well, gee, obviously you're going to do all that stuff. Well, you'd be surprised how many craft beer doesn't tell you what it is. You're supposed to know that, Ernie's, beer is a brown ale. So we try to put the alcohol, the shade, the SRM, the bitterness, the IBU. We put all that stuff on the can so that you know exactly what's in there. And then on the limiteds, which we'll do, we do limiteds all the time, but we typically will cycle through the same one about twice a year to 3 times a year. And those are 16-ounce 4-packs. And those are a little different. They're not as plain Jane. They're a little bit more abstract, if you will. So they've got brighter colors on it. It's like somebody took a paintbrush and just kind of, swatched at it. Kind of fun, colorful, bold labels. I might add on each, so we're Charter Oak, all the names. It's a Connecticut legend. Kids learn it in the 3rd or 4th grade. Probably forget about it by the 5th or 6th grade. But all of our beers are named after a person, a place, a thing, something that happened during the legend of the Charter Oak. It was a royal charter, and the charter was a scroll that was hidden in an oak tree. And the only reason I tell you that is on all of our labels, there's a scroll hidden. So it's kind of fun. You got to find the scroll on the label. I think I was accused of, I don't know if you remember the magazine Highlights, where you open to the middle and there's hidden things in the picture. Yeah. Somebody accused me of subscribing to too many highlights as a kid. But I always enjoyed it, and it gave me a really good naming convention to use the charter. It's very iconic. I would say New England. Most people in the Northeast know what the Charter Oak was. Like the Brown is the 1687. That's the year it started. The Wadsworth IPA. Joseph Wadsworth was the guy that took the Royal Charter and hid it in the oak tree. It all happened at the Stafford Tavern. So the Stafford Tavern is our ESB. And I can go on and on and on. But if you look at our beer list, all of those names are a person, a place, a thing, something that happened during the legend of the Charter Oak.
That's awesome that you're telling this history, and then also you're allowing a fun game like Where's Waldo, where people can have something else to do while they're enjoying your beer, is try to find out where the scroll's at. Right.
No, they get a kick out of it. They get a kick out of it. So we'll try anything. You got to get the beer. You got to get the beer out, get it into distribution, get into the mouths of beer drinkers, and we kind of do some fun stuff with some fun labeling and fun naming convention. All of that stuff helps someone in a way. I feel our best marketing, though, is the tap room. They come here, they enjoy the beers, and they see it out in the marketplace, and hopefully we'll, grab a pint at a bar or, a 6-pack at a retail store.
There you go. Now, you guys, tell us about the Legendary Series, the Charter Series, and the Oak Series that you guys have.
So those are the 3 series. I did that for simplicity because the 3 series. Every label has to be approved. Every label has to have a UPC code on it. And when you deal with the big chains like we do, the Whole Foods, the Trader Joe's, the Big Y's, the Stop and Shops, the ShopRites, et cetera, you have to get requalified every time you have a new beer. So what I did was I put them into Charter Series, and everything in the Charter Series has the same UPC. Everything in the Oak Series does. Everything in the Legendary Series does. So as long as I don't put the 2 out at the same time, I don't have to requalify the brand with the store. So that was my logic on it. And the delineation is the Legendary are the kind of the easygoing, the lagers, the pilsners. I might have a porter in there that's not very. They're all very flavorful, but it's not a robust porter. So they're kind of more the easygoing, lighter beers, if you will. The Charter series, it ramps up. There are your IPAs, your sours, a little bit more alcohol, quite a bit more flavor, a lot more of a hop charge. So, a bigger beer, if you will. And then the Oak series are very ultra limited releases. Those are my bourbon barrel aged series. The sours that are, they're lambics, and they're types of sours that sit for, a year or two. So they're not necessarily aging beers, but they're really, really big beers. I have Lights Out Stout. That's a 10% beer, not aged at all. So beers like that would go into the Oak series. So it delineates the really big beers from the more easygoing, although flavorful, but the more easygoing beers. And that's been a good one because people know the legendary. It's already qualified that if you want a Kolsch or a Hillis, if it's a legendary beer and you're not into the big beers, just picking up a legendary Charter Oak beer, that it's going to be palatable for you in a way. If you like the big IPAs, it's the Charter series. So it almost pre-qualifies before you buy the beer.
That's smart on multiple levels. Like you said, you don't have to worry about getting things approved again because they're in this series. Or, like you said, it lets people know, oh, okay, I like this series, and then they might try something else from another series, but they're going to be more keen on whatever series obviously is more flavorable for their palate. So I love that you guys do that, and you're allowing people to know, okay, well, this is what they're getting themselves into when it does come to this series, and this series.
Right. No, that's it. And to your point, it's easier to, once you qualify that beer into a store, or rather that UPC, you're pretty well set. You don't have to requalify other types of, beers. And it's, as I'm sure you've heard from other podcasts, it's a pain in the neck getting a beer approved. And if you're doing limited releases and they're not core, by the time it's approved, it's gone. The small stores have already grabbed it. So you've lost the opportunity with the big stores, the grocery stores and the C stores and that kind of convenience stores.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It makes no sense why it is such a pain to get, certain alcohols, especially beers, like approved, whether it be the labels or the names or what you do and don't have to put on it. And what's even more funny is that it's different for every state. It's like, it's not like people aren't consuming beer in every state. Why do we not have the same laws? It just kind of makes no sense to me, but I understand how each state and sometimes every county is so different that they want to have different money grabs or ways to control what is and what is not coming out in the market.
No, it is just a royal pain in the neck. You're exactly right. Getting each one qualified at a federal level and then at a state level. It's time. I mean, I know enough we've done so many labels that I know what gets approved and what doesn't, but I can't do the time. I mean, the time is the time. It's when they get to it, when they want to approve it, and the clock keeps ticking. So it's chicken or the egg. Do you produce the label before the beer or the beer before the label?
Yeah, because I mean, what if you run into the situation where you say it's going to be this percent, but then afterwards it comes out to this percent, and then somebody tests you and it's like, well, they said it was this, but it's actually this. That's correct.
That's the biggest problem. Is exactly. Yeah. Or the SR. I put all that stuff on my label. So the good news is truth in lending. Everything that full disclosure. The bad news is because I've done that. If I made a mistake, if I didn't hit that number, you got to toss the labels and get them reapproved.
Right. So and it's not like you're not going to go through each one and just scratch them out by hand and write it in and then, hope for the best on that.
But you can't even do that because it hasn't been approved.
Exactly.
You can't approve a handwritten label.
Yeah.
So it is problematic. But we're a heavily regulated industry, and I think anybody that gets into it knows that. It's firearms, tobacco, alcohol. I mean, those are the three sins. We're under the magnifying glass.